In the past couple of years, what is known as weird girl fiction has gained so much popularity, and there are so many amazing books that come into this category. But there are also definitely some that are weird for the sake of being weird and aren't actually that much of an enjoyable reading experience. I have a pile of books here that are very weird, but also written amazingly, have brilliant plots, and I absolutely loved all of them. These books come in a variety of flavours of weird. They're not so in your face weird like cannibalism, but they are all peculiar in their own way, such as unexplainable events, absurd behaviour, unsettling atmospheres, psychological confusion. Country Will Bring Us No Peace by Matthieu Simard is a book I have raved about countless times on TikTok and Instagram. People are probably sick of me talking about it, but I cannot express how much I loved this tiny little book. It deserves so much more attention. On the back is described by another author as a horror story with the horror drained out of it, and that is the perfect way to describe this book. I love books with the fear of the unknown. The unknown is what brings the creepy atmosphere. It follows Simon and Marie, who are a couple who are struggling to have a baby, and they decide it's time to leave the city life and move to a small idyllic village where they can have a more peaceful life and potentially have a better chance at starting a family. They convince themselves that when they move to this village, everything in their lives will just get a little bit better. But when they get there, the village has this bleak and threatening and unsettling atmosphere, and their neighbours are hostile towards them. There are rumours that nothing has been the same since the factory shut down and the broadcast antenna was erected. There are no birds singing, and people are disappearing. The couple continuously try to make sense of this new life they have, but nothing adds up. They find strange buildings in places that don't make sense. And as they are going through this, they're also dealing with grief, and they aren't entirely sure what does and doesn't exist anymore. It felt like every single character and event and object in this story was really teetering on the blurry line between a fever dream and reality. This book completely fills you with a sense of dread and isolation, and the writing was absolutely beautiful. Not a single word was wasted, every single word was intentional, and the beautiful prose did not take away from the story at all. It still completely got its point across. The ending of this book absolutely blew me away. I was sat there with my jaw open, feeling every emotion possible, not knowing what to do with myself. I remember the second I finished reading it, I ran to grab my phone and take a video for TikTok because I just needed everyone to know about this book. When I read it, which was in 2023, there were very few reviews for this on Goodreads, and since then so many more people have started picking this book up, and it makes me so happy to see because this book deserves so much more attention. It is Matthieu Simard's only work that has been translated into English, and I would absolutely love to read more from him, hopefully in the future. The book does have a very different cover in the US and other places. It has a completely different vibe on the cover. I feel like the vibe of the other cover really doesn't replicate the vibe of the actual book. I think this cover is much better for the story. This is by Influx Press, which are one of my favourite small presses in the UK. If you're like me and you quite enjoy ambiguous stories, I think you will also love this. I like books that leave you questioning everything, thinking about everything deeply afterwards. If you're the type of person who needs answers to your burning questions, this book doesn't answer any of them. This is Jackdaw by Tade Thompson. This is from another of one of my favourite small publishers in the UK, Cheerio Publishing. This is about a psychiatrist who is hired to write a piece of work about the artist Francis Bacon. But as he's researching him for this piece of work, he finds himself becoming completely obsessed with him, obsessed with who the artist is, his life, and the people that were involved in his life. His obsession with Francis Bacon begins to consume every waking second of this psychiatrist's life. He completely begins to lose his grip on reality and finds himself being haunted by disturbing figures. In a nutshell, this book is about how the drive and passion and motivation to create art can destroy the artist. Although this book is bleak and tense, Tade Thompson adds comedic value to what would otherwise be a really dark story. This book is only short, it's only around 150 pages, but is an absolute whirlwind. It is 100% the type of book that leaves you questioning your own mind, leaves you questioning what was the psychiatrist's reality and what was hallucinations, what was dreams, what were figments of his imagination. After you finish this, you'll be left questioning your own sense of reality. I guess on a similar vein to Jackdaw in the sense of artists destroying themselves to create their art, I want to recommend Suture by Nic Brewer, which is about three women who quite literally sacrifice themselves to create their art. Firstly, we follow Eva, who, to make her films, must take out her eyes and use them as batteries. We follow Finn, who, to make her art, must cut open her chest and take out her lungs and heart. We follow Grace, who, to write her novels, must use her blood to power her word processor. As each of the women are doing these absurd things, they are grappling with their relationship to their family, to their loved ones, to their friends, and disrupting their lives with the sacrifices they are making. Though it has these very bizarre body horror elements, it is still a very introspective novel with very fleshed out characters. To me, it's like if Sally Rooney wrote a horror novel, not that the end of Normal People wasn't horrifying enough. Grace, who is the author who has to use her blood to power her word processor, pushes herself too far time and time again, getting herself admitted to hospital, making the life of her partner and her loved ones terrifying and difficult. And I think it explores how sometimes we are so hyper focused on our own dreams and goals and wants and needs that we aren't always fully aware of the cruelty we are displaying to the people around us. Where I End by Sophie White is a very icky and claustrophobic novel that has a very disturbing perspective on relentless love. This is about a teenager called Elin who lives on a small island that she has never left. She has a bedbound mother who was victim to a disaster that no one will tell her about and no one will speak about. And Elin is quite disturbed by her mother because she is silent, but she also hears her creaking at night. After growing up in this quite difficult and very unusual household, Elin is desperate to start and have her own family. So when one day a single mother and artist called Rachel moves to the island with her baby, Elin finally has somewhere to direct her relentless love. Elin is the primary caregiver for her mother, and she was raised by her grandmother. And although the three of them could not be any physically closer in this tiny, murky, claustrophobic house, they could not be any more distant emotionally. Elin holds a lot of resentment for her mother, and this leads to her behaving in the most heinous ways. It is really uncomfortable and anxiety inducing to read. Despite Elin's behaviour, you do not see her as the villain, you are also still rooting for her. When Rachel moves to the island and Elin witnesses Rachel caring for her baby in ways that Elin's mother had never cared for her, her resentment grows, and Elin's need to share her love bubbles and boils, and everything erupts in the most weird and disturbing ways. This book is genuinely creepy, and I highly recommend reading it at night. Strega by Joan Lykke is the epitome of a fever dream book. This follows a young girl called Rafa who arrives in the small remote alpine town of Strega, where she's going to work at the Olympic Hotel. Rafa and 8 other young girls are given their uniform as seasonal workers and are taught how to iron, cook, and make beds. Everything feels a little strange because they are doing all this hard work for a hotel that has no guests. In their free time, the girls become friends and start enjoying spending time in each other's company. Everything starts to go wrong when one day the hotel completely fills up for a party and one of the young girls disappears. This book is weird in ways that are really hard to describe without you reading it. It has this very fever dream, whimsical atmosphere to it. Nothing that is happening makes sense, but everyone is just going along with it. I think this book has a very dreamlike feel to it because it is such a visceral reading experience. It really holds on to liquids, bodily fluids, food, the weather, nature, the sounds that materials make, the sounds that our body parts and our skin and hair makes, what the air feels like. This book is about many things, but one of them being how women and girls are raised to expect violence from the world. Literally on the first page, there is a line that says, "I knew a woman's life could at any point be turned into a crime scene." Upon the disappearance of one of the young girls, they become involved with nuns at a local convent. At first, you see such a departure in lifestyle between the girls working at this hotel and the nuns at the convent, but in actuality, their lives are very similar. The days of the girls at the hotel and the days of the nuns at the convent are equally as repetitive. And this kind of highlights even further the roles in society that women and girls are all pushed into, no matter what walk of life you come from. The atmosphere in this book is just otherworldly and like nothing else I've read before. In my opinion, The Dolls by Ursula Scavenius is one of the most underrated short story collections. Before you even get into the flesh of each of the stories, you will already find yourself yourself somewhat lost in a dreamlike atmosphere, because none of the stories are placed in any sense of reality. You don't know where they are set, you don't know what year it is, you don't know anything about the environment and society that the stories are set within. The first story, which is also the title story, is a story that has stuck in my brain for years now. I will never forget it. It is about what is a kind of typical nuclear family, but they are living in a rather strange community. There is always something on fire, and the whole family are confused by these sounds coming from the forest. It sounds like a violin, but they're not entirely sure. It's constantly on their mind. It is something they are questioning every day. One of the daughters in the family chooses to go and live in the basement. She removes herself from her family physically, and she stays in the basement 24/7. She communicates with her sister and her parents via notes that she passes through the floorboards, and she's fed by being given boiled eggs each day. The story questions what and how much do we really need to sustain a life. The atmosphere of this story really reminded me of the first book I recommended, The Country Will Bring Us No Peace, where everything is slightly off. Something is not right. Everything feels a little weird, but it is not possible to put your finger on it. If you would like some more weird book recommendations, let me know in the comments, because I have plenty more where they came from. Or if you have your own recommendations for books that you think I might like based on the books I recommended, then please also let me know, and thank you for watching.